It was at this moment that he knew. He f***ed up.
This is our Coleman BT200X that I bought from my boys last year. It's a year old now and has about 100 miles on it, possibly a little more. And they've wiped it out a couple of times, so there is some damage, but I'm going to just go over what's held up and what hasn't and how the thing is overall after owning it for a year and letting preteen boys beat the crap out of it. The BT stands for big tube. It's the big tube frame. If you've looked at some of the other mini bikes, including the other Coleman mini bikes, most of them have a very small or thin tubed frame. This one has a really beefy frame, and that is the principal reason I purchased this one over the other bikes. It's also sitting up a lot taller than the other mini bikes. I'm 6'2", and both my boys are close to 6 foot, so we needed one that wouldn't be too small framed for how tall they are. So the BT is the big tube. The 200 refers to the motor. It's not really 200 cc's, it's 196 cc's. They refer to it as a 200. So it has decent power. It's, I think, listed at 11 foot-pounds of torque. I'm guessing somewhere between 5 and 8 horsepower, but it's limited to only 20 miles an hour. Obviously, you know, a 200 cc motor should be able to go quite a bit faster, but it has a lot of torque. It doesn't have any problem going up hills or through sand or mud at all. It's got big balloon tires on it, so not too bad. No rear suspension, just the front shocks, but that helps. The seat is, the first thing I would probably complain about is the seat is too soft, and after about 30 minutes, you definitely know you don't have any support underneath you. Obviously, it really doesn't matter for kids, but as an adult over 40, it gets your back gets pretty sore pretty quick. As far as reliability, these are the things that were damaged right out of the gate, and first thing was the pull cord. Within 2 days, it broke. The internals, the plastic ring on the inside that engages when you pull, that shattered. Probably like about the 10th time or so somebody pulled on it. The bike does come with a warranty. However, it's just easier to snatch one of these off Amazon for about 15 bucks. We had it 2 days later because Amazon Prime delivery, and it literally the 4 screws right there and there, those just 4 screws hold it on, and it was like, took all of 30 seconds to swap out the broken one with this one. And then this one, the younger ones, when they pull on it, they just let go, and this is shattered. But to be fair, this isn't actually the recoil that it came with, since that one broke almost immediately. And this one obviously just has a brittle plastic handle, but it still works. The only other issue that we had, if I come down here, is this. At the bottom of the float, there's this bolt, actually. There's then there, and you can see there's another one right there, and that reason this one is a different color is because the bolt that was in it, that was this color, vibrated loose and fell out at some point, probably within the first week last summer. And I just went down to the hardware store and found a matching bolt and threaded it in, and that was the end of that. But it was just leaking gas everywhere because that bolt vibrated loose and fell out. So we put a little Loctite on it and like tightened up the one next to it as well. So they've not come loose, and nothing else has come loose. I did kind of go over the bike after that, just checking all the nuts and bolts, and everything's been fine. Nothing's come loose since. As far as durability, the amount of times I've seen the boys wipe it out, I'm surprised it hasn't broken more. The front headlight was clipped to this, and there's a wire that runs through the frame, and the headlight mounts on that. And in one of the wipeouts, the headlight was just bashed right off the bike. I mean, it was just tore clean off the bike from being somersaulted. And it's been laid down many times. I don't see any damage to the handlebars, the brake lever, the foot pegs, the front fender. You can see some scratches on the cover there. There's the rear fender, the chain guard on this side, the guard here. They've all held up even though the bike's been dumped literally probably a dozen times. You can see pretty good road rash on the tube frame, and I think that's why it has held up and not shattered or broke apart or failed in any way, is because it's just really, really heavily built. These look like they're cast iron and they're quite thick. And there's a lot. I did notice some other YouTubers saying that the welding could be questionable. It's not perfect, but most of the welding on this bike was pretty clean. I didn't see anything that looked sus, so I figured nothing was going to fall apart. And it has been wiped out pretty violently several times, quite a few times. They're pretty hard on it, and there's no damage other than the front headlight. Now, I wasn't happy about the recoil shattering within a dozen pulls. I wasn't happy about the fact that the bolt worked its way loose from the bowl under the carburetor, but those are very minor things, and since then, nothing else has gone wrong. Some things I will point out. Actually, there is one other thing. So you have a kill switch right here. That kill switch is connected to this wire here, which is the ground of that kill switch, and it was not crimped properly into its ferrule, so it broke free actually a few days ago, so it was about a year old at that point. And I just undid this bolt, crimped a new ring terminal, and bolted it back on, and everything was good to go again. So not a huge issue. One thing I will point out, if you can see it right there, it says this is your choke, and this is your fuel shutoff, and it says on, but if you look closer, there's a little arrow right there that points this way. So actually that is fuel on, even though it says on right there, but it is an arrow. So super confusing. It took us running out of gas, I think, a few times in a row before we realized that this arrow means that on is this way. This is on, and then this is fuel shut off. One thing I have noticed is that it starts on one pull every single time the entire year we've owned it. When we don't use it in the winter because we live out of state, and so this bike is kept up north, and we vacation about 6 weeks a year up here. And we pulled the bike out of the barn, threw some gas in it, literally put the choke on. Actually, this is the choke on. Starts in one pull, and you put it to run, and you go. And even if the bike is warm, something I've noticed is it pretty much always wants the choke on to start, but then you immediately just flip it to run, and that's it. It's one pull every time, but just warm, cold, whatever, it wants the choke on to start. But it's a one pull thing, and it fires right up. So overall, super impressed with how much it's held up. Like I said, they're pretty hard on it. Worst accident, the older one, the 13-year-old at the time, we had it for about 2 weeks, and he had gotten a little bit comfortable with it, and it was starting to get dark out, the sun was setting, and he was running along a fence line and didn't see a loop of wire hanging out from the fence, and it caught this handlebar. Didn't damage the handlebar in any way, but it caught either that or the brake lever, but it caught it, and just this, and he was going full speed. Now this bike, like I said, it's governed about 20 miles an hour, but when you're running along a fence line and the handle goes like that, yeah, the bike dumped instantly and did a cartwheel, and he went right over the handlebars and flew about 10 feet, but he's a 13-year-old boy, so he jumped up and acted like nothing had happened. But the bike did a full somersault at full speed, and I mean, it hit that point, the headlight had already broken off of it, so there wasn't any further damage sustained. And he wiped it out earlier this morning while we were shooting some footage of him riding it.
Whoops.
And it went right into some trees, and it didn't do anything to it. So that big tube frame really holds up. So far, very impressed, very happy. We paid, I think we got this from Camping World. We ordered it online with delivery. At the time, they were running a special for $4.99, but then there was tax and shipping, so we were out the door for about, I want to say $780. And that includes tax and shipping. So the normal price of the bike is typically $800 plus tax and shipping. So getting it for less than that, 20 bucks less than that, out the door and right to the house, that's not bad at all. We had it together in about 15-20 minutes, and other than a few issues, it's been very reliable. And for the price we paid, for $800 or less, I think it's excellent. For more than $800, you know, then it's kind of like maybe not. But for the price we paid, yeah. In fact, I actually kind of considered getting a second one. But the older boy is probably going to get more into dirt bikes soon, and this is slow enough that we might just buy a dirt bike or a quad, probably some dirt bikes. But really happy with this. I mean, it can be used by fairly young kids, but the nice thing is, again, like I said, I'm 6'2", and when I sit on it, I don't have any problem. If I put my leg on the peg, the only issue I've ever had was when I was running down a trail, and maybe I can show you, and I'll shut the bike off, the bike will be on, and I'll be turning and my knee will hit it and I'll kill the bike. So if you're tall as I am, if you're over 6 foot tall, you have to kind of pay attention to sit a little bit back in the seat and watch that your knee doesn't hit the kill switch. And that's the only problem I've had riding it. So it's a large enough frame for a full-size adult to enjoy it, no problem. Just my back can't take the seat. It's not firm enough. It's a little too soft. So after about 30 minutes, my back's done. But not bad. It's a lot of fun. It does get buzzy at full speed. If you're on pavement, you really feel the vibration in the handlebars and the buzz in the seat at wide open throttle. So I back it off to about 15 miles an hour, and it's pretty smooth going down pavement. But when you're on dirt, you don't feel anything. It's very comfortable on dirt. Alright, I'm going to show you how easy this thing is to start. Switch it on, fuel on, choke it. I barely had to pull just to kind of show you how easily it starts. I mean, it starts effortlessly. As long as the choke's on, it fires on one pull, and it doesn't even have to be a hard pull.